Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Look us up in the sports section on Roku. We're there. Dwyer Boxing and Sports News. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Well, I just read where Saul Alvarez is calling out Erislandy Lara. Right? Big fight. He apparently wants it to be pay-per-view, and all I can say is, wow, I give Saul Alvarez credit. If I'm Erislandy Lara, as long as that offer allows me to pay the people around me and make a modest profit, it doesn't have to be a major profit, I would take that fight. My initial thought, and I admit I have not looked at any tape since the article came out talking about Saul Alvarez wanting Erislandy Lara next. But my initial impression is that this fight is a mismatch. I believe Lara wins this fight easily. There is a big difference, and I mean a big difference, between Alfredo Angulo, who you know is going to be coming after you on his front foot, who you know is a lead puncher, right? Who you know is going to be coming at you throwing both hands. There's a big difference between that guy who comes in square and Erislandy Lara, who comes in sideways, who's a master counter puncher, right? Who's going to double, triple, quadruple up on the same hand if that's the angle you're giving him. Now, I'll agree, Canelo is an explosive puncher. I'll agree, Canelo looked explosive against Alfredo Angulo. But as I said in a previous video, in the post-fight video, if you look closely at that Angulo fight, you're going to see that Angulo frequently has Canelo up on the ropes. This is in rounds where Canelo is throwing explosive punches. Now, I know people are going to dissect, compare, and contrast Alfredo Angulo against Lara, and he did knock Lara down twice, versus Angulo against Canelo, who had the upper hand in a fight where the referee stopped the fight. Right? Angulo doesn't quit like he did against Lara. Rather, the ref steps in and stops the fight. But I would say that boxing skill-wise, if you look at those two fights, I think Lara is doing more than Canelo. Canelo's an explosive puncher. No doubt about that. But he's not showing you the movement. He's not showing you the elusiveness. Right? He's not showing you the clever counterpunching that Erislandy Lara showed you against Angulo. Right? Now, there is a question here about Lara's ability to take a punch, since he was knocked down twice by a guy who did not knock down Canelo. Right? But you have to catch up with him to drop him. This is a guy who fought Paul Williams and went the distance. Many people felt that he got robbed in that fight. Right? Keep in mind, too, that some of the defects in Lara's game, such as the fact that he doesn't throw a lot of punches. Right? Look at the CompuBox for the Paul Williams fight. Right? Lead punchers cannot throw him in matches. He doesn't have to worry about that against Canelo, because Canelo himself is low volume. Right? So what I believe is going to happen here is you're going to have a match that's Austin Trout plus. Right? Keep in mind, Lara beat Trout. Right? Austin Trout fought Canelo. Did better than him on the CompuBox numbers. Let's get real. Right? The CompuBox numbers are out there. The fight was, in my opinion, a close fight that, of course, was heavily impacted by the fact that they announced the scores during the fight. Right? And, of course, the judges, curiously, had Austin Trout losing that fight in the middle rounds. So that changed everything for the end of that fight. But my point to you is, if you thought Austin Trout beat Canelo, or if you thought that Austin Trout fight against Canelo was close, and that's a fight where Trout hardly goes to the body, then just imagine what's going to happen when Lara, an even slicker boxer than Austin Trout, who actually goes to the body and who works angles better and who doesn't rely on his jab as much. Just imagine what's going to happen when Lara gets in the ring with Canelo. I believe Canelo's only shot in this is a puncher's chance. I believe he's going to lose this fight on the scorecards by several rounds. Right? If I were advising Lara, I would just have a couple of questions. I would say, hey, the offer they've made, will we be able to cover expenses? If the answer to that first question is yes, then the second question would be, when do we get started? Right? I like Lara big over Canelo here. I think Canelo, quite frankly, is, at this point, as he's fighting elite fighters, right? Floyd Mayweather, now Erislandy Lara, I think he's in over his head. Keep in mind, too, on weight, Lara himself is able to gain a lot of weight, right, after a weigh-in. In other words, Canelo's not going to enter the ring being the heavier guy. Also, I encourage you, in terms of assessing and comparing Alfredo Angulo against Canelo to Alfredo Angulo against Lara, what you need to do too is go off-road a bit and look into the hijinks that took place leading up to the Angulo-Lara fight. Right? Lara's people contend that they were told that there was a hard weight cap. Of course, Angulo went way over it. Right? This is a post-weigh-in weight cap. Right? And so just understand, Lara didn't come into that fight at the weight that he wanted, while the other guy did. Right? The playing field was a bit unlevel. And still, Lara, in several of those rounds, put on a masterclass. Understand, he tagged Angulo's eye so many times that it was Angulo who pulled the plug in that fight. Right? Also, let me say this too. And I know I've been criticized here online, fair enough. Right? It's the Wild Wild West out here. But the crowd at the end of the Angulo-Canelo fight was unsatisfied. Many in the crowd thought that fight was stopped prematurely. I believe the crowd at the end of the Lara Angulo fight understood why Angulo stopped fighting. Right? No one called him a quitter. He didn't face the blowback that Roberto Duran faced when he quit against Ray Leonard. Right? People understood his eye was blown up and he was in against a sharp shooter. I'm expecting Lara to take this fight. I'll make a follow-up video after I look at more videos. Let me also say too that now Canelo's starting to fight bigger men. The size gap is going to start to become apparent in the matches. Right? Understand, Canelo is not that tall. You saw that Floyd Mayweather was taller than Saul Alvarez, right? My point to you is simply, there's going to be a height dynamic, there's going to be a speed dynamic, there's going to be a boxing skill dynamic in this fight. I don't believe Canelo is going to be able to land his lead jab, right? Understand too, when you're fighting an Alfredo Angulo, there are going to be times where it looks like target practice, just like when you're fighting Brandon Rios, right? These guys don't have a lot of head movement and a lot of defensive capability. Erislandy Lara does, right? I believe there's going to be a different dynamic. Look at how few times Saul Alvarez landed on Austin Trout. And just imagine what might happen if Lara comes in, studies that Trout tape, sees what Trout did right, and is even more elusive. I like Lara to win the fight. I'm guessing because Saul Alvarez is such a popular fighter. Lara to win should be within the range of reason odd-wise. Right, and I would hedge to play with Saul Alvarez by KO. That prop might be overvalued because Canelo recently stopped Alfredo Angulo. My point to you, though, is think back to Canelo against better defensive fighters. Right? Floyd Mayweather, unmarked after fighting Canelo. Right? Floyd, could have gone out and taken pictures unmarked. You wouldn't even have guessed from post-fight pictures that Floyd had just gone 12 rounds with Canelo. Think about Matthew Hatton. I know he was hanging on for dear life against Saul Alvarez, but let's remember, Matthew Hatton went the distance with Canelo. Let's remember, Shane Mosley went the distance with Canelo. I'm just here to tell you that Hatton and Mosley don't have, in my opinion, anything close to the defensive skills of Erislandy Lara. That's my first impression. Let me hear yours. Let's start the dialogue. Tell us who wins the fight. Tell us which fights we should look at to do our research. Tell us what parts of this fight you feel are missing. Right? Let's talk about it every step of the way as they announce whether the fight takes place, the venue of the fight, which I suspect will be Las Vegas, few other factors, right? The length of the fight, the weight, all of those things will matter. Thanks for stopping by.